Hi, I'm Stephen Galucki, the Product Development Manager for Ball Home Canning. We are here in our test kitchen outside Charlotte, North Carolina, and today I'm going to go over the essential steps required for safe water bath home canning. Water bath canning, or boiling water canning, is one of two proven methods for shelf-stable canning, the other being pressure canning, which we won't get into today. Water bath canning is good for acidified foods, such as jams, salsa, pickles, and applesauce. After following a tested recipe, prepared food is placed into canning jars and then processed at boiling for a specified time. When water bath canning, you need a large vessel to hold water. This is typically a large pot over a gas or electric coil stove. If you have a flat top electric stove, you need to consult the owner's manual to see if it is rated for the weight of canning and make sure your canning pot is flat on the bottom. Ball Home Canning also sells an easy canner, which automates several of the canning steps for peace of mind and makes cleanup easier, as water can be drained without needing to carry the pot to the sink from the stove. There are several important pieces of equipment you will need to can safely. The first is a tested recipe that has proven to be safe for water bath canning. The Ball Blue Book is a great source, as well as publications from the USDA. The Ball Blue Book has all the information you need to get started in canning and the science behind it, as well as lots of tips and tricks to make sure you will be successful. For canning equipment, we need a trivet or metal rack to go on the bottom of the canner. This prevents the jars from getting thermal shocked on the bottom of the pot and supports consistent heating. Thermal shock is when the glass changes temperature too quickly and breaks. Similarly, you'll need a cutting board to place hot jars on when coming out of the canner to prevent thermal shock, as putting a hot jar on a cold surface can also lead to thermal shock. A jar lifter is used to remove and replace hot jars. A ladle helps move the hot food into your hot jar. A funnel will help reduce contamination of the sealing area when filling. And a headspace tool confirms the right spacing between the food and the lid. A cleaning cloth or paper towel is used to wipe the jar rim before installing the lid. You will need clean jars, the right jar size and type for your recipe, and ideally one or two extra smaller jars that can be used if there's any extra at the end of the pot. Once you figure out what jars you are using, you will want some lids and bands as well. Inspect the lids, jars, and bands. Make sure the lids have not been used before and have a full gasket surface and no scratches that are shiny on the bottom. The jars should not have any cracks or chips in the sealing area. Bands should be round and able to easily thread onto the jars. Wash your lids, bands, and jars in warm, soapy water to make sure they are clean. The area you can should have a source of clean water near your cooking area to fill your pot and keep your tools clean. It should also have a stable temperature and no strong breezes to minimize temperature disruption to the process and maintain heat during cooking, filling, and cooling. Once you have confirmed you have all your equipment and space in order, you can start preheating your water while you prepare your recipe. To preheat the water, fill your pot with the trivet inside. A good rule of thumb is to fill the water up to about an inch above the empty jars. When the jars are placed back in the pot full of food later, the water will rise a bit, and you can always scoop a little out to get the water level closer to an inch above the jars, which is better than needing to add more preheated water in at that point. Preheat all of the jars you think you may use in the pot while the recipe is being prepared. The jars need to be preheated so that they do not thermal shock when the hot food is placed in them. Always do this unless instructed in the recipe. A good preheating target is about 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is typically right around when you start seeing small bubbles form at the bottom of the pot. If you are using an easy canner, begin the preheating jar step in auto canning mode. If you know you have hard water with high mineral content, a quarter cup of white vinegar can help prevent film buildup on the inside of the pot. Lids do not need to be preheated. Preheating can actually negatively impact the strength of the seal in water bath canning, and increase the likelihood of buckles when pressure canning. Once your recipe is cooked and ready for processing, remove one of the preheated jars from the pot of simmering water with the jar lifter and place it on a dry cutting board. Place the funnel in the jar and then fill with the hot food. Remove the funnel and use the bubble remover tool to vent bubbles. Do this even if there aren't visible bubbles on the outside, except for soft spreads like jams or jellies that have a uniform consistency going into the jar. Too much air can slow how the heat comes into the jar and lead to poor seals as the air gets pushed out and leaves too much headspace in the food once it's gone. Use the other end of the tool to measure the headspace and make sure it matches the recipe requirements. Do not swirl the tool, as this can spread contamination along the sealing surface. Clean the rim with a cloth or paper towel. Place the lid on the jar and then apply the band fingertip tight. This means you tighten it down with the strength of just a few fingers, not your full hand. It's fingertip tight, not fingertip loose. Use the jar lifter to place the jar back in the pot. Use the same technique to fill the rest of the jars. They should be filled one at a time. This makes sure to minimize the time the jars have to cool outside of the pot while they are waiting to be filled. Filling them all at once is called assembly line filling and increases your chance of glass thermal shock and reduces the overall temperature of the food going into the pot and is not recommended. Once all of your jars are back in the pot, confirm the water level is about 1 inch above the top of the jars. You can remove a little water if required. With the water height correct, turn the heat to medium-high and warm the water to a rolling boil. A rolling boil has a lot of movement. It's better to wait a minute or two to be sure of your boil than to start your timer too early. Once you have confirmed the rolling boil, start a timer for the processing time in the recipe. You will need to adjust the processing time based on your altitude if you are canning more than 1,000 feet above sea level. Instructions on how to do this are on page 9 of the 38th edition of the Blue Book. For example, if you are at 5,280 feet above sea level in Denver, Colorado, you would add 10 minutes to the time specified in the recipe. If your recipe called for 20 minutes, you would process at a rolling boil for 30 minutes. To do this with the Easy Canner, press Next and set the timer with the same altitude adjustments you would make with a regular pot. After your timer is up, turn off the heat and remove the lid. The Easy Canner will beep when processing is done to let you know to remove the lid and automatically start a 5-minute cool-down timer. Let the jars sit in the pot for 5 minutes. This cool-down allows the contents to stabilize and helps reduce the chance of a seal failure when removing the jars. After 5 minutes, remove the jars, being careful not to tip them, and place on a cutting board. Leave an inch or two between jars to make it easier for them to cool, but do not try to quickly cool them down with the fan, as this can cause poor seals. Do not touch or move for about 12 hours. After the jars have cooled, you can check the seals. Remove the bands and confirm that the lids are indented down and able to be carefully picked up by the lid. Wipe off any food that is in the thread area, label with the date and the contents, and move the jars to a dark, dry, and cool place between 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit for storage. The USDA recommends that home canned food be used within 12 months for best taste, texture, and nutritional value. When you are going to open the jars, make sure you confirm the seal is still secure and there are no signs of spoilage. If water bath canned food appears fine, then it can be enjoyed right out of the jar. Always use non-hard utensils like wood, plastic, or silicone. Metal or glass utensils can damage the jars and make them more at risk to experience thermal shock the next time they are used for canning. If you have followed all these steps, then congratulations on taking control of your food supply and preserving today's harvest for tomorrow's security. I hope that canning will bring you a lot of joy and satisfaction.